Most men will spend their entire lives inside a ceiling they never knew existed. Not because they're not smart enough, not because they don't work hard enough, but because the city they grew up in, the circle they were born into, set a limit on what they felt possible, and they never left. I've lived in Philadelphia, I lived in Houston, I lived in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I'm currently in Medellín, Colombia. And I can tell you from direct experience, the man I am today would be unrecognizable to the version of me that stayed home. And the environment you're in right now is running a program on you. It's shaping what you believe is normal, what you believe is possible, what you believe you deserve. And most men never question it. Because when everyone around you is inside the same box, the box feels like the world. Now, if this is your first time on this channel, welcome. This is a space built for people who are serious about the life that they're building, personal development, and law of attraction. In this video, I'm going to take you through my journey through Houston, moving to Houston, Rio, and Medellín. Break down what each environment did to my identity, my mindset, my relationships, and my quality of life. And I'm going to give you the framework to audit your own environment so you can make a conscious, intentional decision about what's next for you. Let's get into it. Now, I've grew up in the Philadelphia area. That's where I went to middle school, some of elementary school. That's where I went to high school, and that's where I went to college. So most of my life was spent growing up in the Philadelphia area, just to give some context, right? Now, I've now moved from Philadelphia to Houston, to Rio de Janeiro, to now living in Medellín, Colombia. Okay, and I'm gonna get into that a little bit more. All right, now let's just talk about overall how your environment is programming. Okay, your environment is programming you without permission. Okay, now your environment oftentimes sets the ceiling on what you feel is possible. The people around you normalize a certain level of ambition, income, and lifestyle, and your brain accepts it as a default. If everyone in your circle is making $20K a month, making $200K a month feels unrealistic. Not because it is, but because you have no reference point for it. And this is not about the people around you being bad. It's about proximity shaping perception. So the people that are around you also can shape your beliefs, your perspectives, and ultimately your actions. Okay? You don't rise to your goals, you fall to the level of the environment. Okay? Now here's a historical example. Now, Abraham Lincoln was born in a one-room log cabin in rural Kentucky. His father was illiterate. Had Lincoln stayed in that environment, absorbed only the ceiling of what the people around him believed was possible, he never becomes the man who held the Union together. He physically relocated Kentucky to Indiana to Illinois, and each move expanded his exposure, his thinking, and his circle. Okay. Now, here's a key statistic as well. A Harvard study on economic mobility found that where you grow up is one of the most powerful predictors of lifetime earnings. Not your IQ, not your work ethic, but your zip code. Children who move to higher opportunity areas before age 13 earn 35% more as adults than those who stayed. Okay. Now, another thing is familiarity breeds comfort, and comfort breeds stagnation. Okay. The brain is wired to conserve energy. Familiar environments require less processing, so the brain starts to settle. The brain doesn't need as much growth. Okay. When your surroundings stop challenging you, your growth flatlines. Not because you stop trying, but because there's no new stimulus forcing adaptation. Okay. Now here's another historical example. Theodore Roosevelt, after the death of his mother and wife on the same day in 1884, Roosevelt left New York and moved to the Badlands of North Dakota. He worked as a cattle rancher, lived rough, and physically rebuilt himself. He said the years in the Badlands made him the man he became. The discomfort of a radically new environment forged his character. Okay, and he later called it the romance of my life. Okay, now your hometown knows you as you were and will hold you there. The people that you grew up around, your family, your friends, they know you as you were. Okay, and the people who knew you before you started changing have a fixed image of you in their minds. So every time you go home, you feel the pull back to the old version, old patterns, old conversations, old identity. Okay? And in order to build a new identity, sometimes you need a new environment. You need a new audience. Okay? Because you don't have that energy of people seeing you a certain way weighing on you. Sociologists call this the looking glass self, the idea that our sense of self partly a reflection of how others see us. When your social mirror only reflects the old you, it becomes harder to inhabit the new you. Okay? Now I want to get into my personal journey and environment. So living in Philadelphia, I started to earn a fully online income. And it inspired me to want to move and travel and move to a new city. And, Houston was a very attractive choice just because it was good weather. It's a major city. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of culture. It's very diverse. And so, that was the first place I chose to live. And I lived in Houston, Texas for about 2.5 years. Okay? And it's one of the most economically diverse and opportunity dense cities in America, like I mentioned. And for me, it was really just about seeing the ambition there, right? When I first moved to Houston, just even moving into my apartment the first day, like even driving through the garage, was inspiring me. Like, you're seeing, all types of amazing foreign cars, Uruses, Lambos, Mansory kits, Rolls Royces, Bentleys, anything that you can name, seeing these on a regular basis when I'm pulling into my apartment. And it was really just motivating and inspiring, and even, most importantly, building the connections, with the people there. Like, there's lifelong relationships that I've been fortunate to build, from my time in Houston as well. Right? And, these are relationships that are some closer than people that I've known, since I was living in Philadelphia and grew up with. Right? And, that ambition, that energy, and just being around people that are like-minded and at high levels of success really starts to shift your perspective on what you believe is possible. Okay? And again, like mentioning, like, I can't stress enough, like, the relationships, right? I heard a wise man say your level of exposure determines your level of success. Right? Your level of exposure determines your level of success. Okay? Now, moving to Rio de Janeiro, like, after my time in Houston, I realized, like, I wanted to travel. I wanted to explore the world. And, I was coming up on a time where my lease was ending. And for me, because I wanted to travel, it just didn't make sense to get another apartment in Houston, because it's like paying for an expensive storage unit if I didn't really want to plan on being there a lot of the time. So I decided to move to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Don't speak Portuguese, don't know the language, didn't know anybody there. In hindsight, it's kind of crazy, right? But, that's just the type of person I am, right? You just got to look it in the face, look fear, look doubt, look all of these things in the face, and, still be able to move and take action. And, that's what I did. And, man, I got to tell you, like, Rio de Janeiro has turned out to be one of my, favorite places in the world. And I would not have gotten to experience such a amazing, city if I didn't, leave my hometown. Okay. Now, here's some of the things, like the key things with this. Obviously, like, Rio de Janeiro itself is just like a beautiful city all the way around. People, beaches, food, things to do, hikes, everything that you can imagine, right? But I want to talk about, like, the other side of the benefits of this, right? Moving somewhere where you don't speak the language, it forces pure presence, right? Because language is how we perform our identity. We craft ourselves through words, through stories, through social scripts. So if you take the language away, all of that collapses. Right? You cannot charm your way, explain your way, and talk your way into anything. What's left is presence, your energy, your intention. Okay? Now, also the natural environment and just the quality of life. Like for me, for somebody, like I love nature. I love beauty. I love admiring, Mother Nature overall and God's work. And, Rio de Janeiro is just like a beautiful city. I think Brazil, South America overall, it's just the nature here just thrives. And it's something that I love to see every single day. Right? And again, lastly, like the friendships, right? There's people that I've met in Rio de Janeiro that are now that will be lifelong friends. People that I connect with on a deeper level, people that share the same mindset, same goals, same vision. And when you're able to connect with people like that, overseas and as you travel the world, it's just a certain energy about it. Like there's a certain connection that you have with people that you meet while you're traveling or internationally, for some reason, because you automatically have something that you guys share, right? Which is that love for travel, the love for enjoyment. It's like a certain type of person that will leave their home country and just live somewhere else. It's a certain type of person, and like when you meet other people like that, you tend to connect with them a lot easier. Okay? And, I appreciate all my guys that I met out in Rio, man. And, bringing it back now to where I am now, I stayed in Rio de Janeiro for 6 months. Amazing experience. Again, like I said, it's become like one of my favorite places, in the world. But now living in Medellín, Medellín was a tough place to leave Rio for. Like, not in the sense that there's anything wrong with Medellín. It's just that Rio is such a great place that, anything following it is, tough to follow. But this is just my personal opinion as well, because somebody may go to Rio and really not like it and feel like they can't be there longer than a week, right? Depending on, the type of person that you are. So I'm just sharing my personal perspective and opinion. But now living in Medellín for 2 months, man, again, like I love nature. So that's one of the amazing things with Medellín. It's like it's so beautiful as far as, nature. Nature is. It's like it thrives here, and they do a great job of just taking care of it. And the networking out here is amazing as well. Like the networking out here is amazing. The fitness culture, that's another thing in South America, in both Rio and Medellín, is this really strong fitness culture. Like people take their fitness seriously, especially in Rio de Janeiro and Brazil. And, that was another motivating thing. It's like everybody around you is in shape. I was already consistent in the gym, but just being around that as well just keeps you motivated and inspired as well. And the networking here, like I've met people here just in the last couple of weeks, people that I really connect with that are like-minded, that are founders, that are business owners, that are traders, that work in AI, that, do so many different things, entrepreneurs and people that make money online. So it's a real great culture of that, of like people that are just like you, right? And that's one of the things I enjoy most about international travel and living in different countries is, yes, you get to appreciate the culture and the people that live there, but you also get to meet people that are just like you, right? That have the same mindset, that kind of look at the world in the same way. And that's just sometimes like you just can't get that in your home city. And the growth that I've been able to get, over these last 8-9 months has been amazing. I've completely evolved into a new and improved version of myself. My routine, my habits, my mindset, how I look at certain things has really shifted. And, that's the biggest benefit, is like who I'm becoming, like who you become in the process of all of this, and what you learn, and the wisdom that you gain, and the understanding that you gain as well. Right? So I would say, those are some of the things that have impacted me. Okay? And, the principle behind it all is like each move helped me evolve into a better version of myself, into a new identity that helps me become the man that I'm striving to become. And let's take the shark example, right? If you put a shark in a fishbowl, the shark won't grow as big as it could. Put the shark in the ocean, the shark's gonna grow as big as a shark should. So sometimes you just need your right environment to be able to grow and to develop into the person that you know you can. Peace, love, and abundance, everyone. Hope this video added value to you. If it did, just give me a like. It really helps a lot. I would appreciate it. All right, y'all. Until the next one.